funky music going on for today's live stream. Hello, welcome to another art stream on a fine Tuesday afternoon. I am Ghost, and we are continuing painting Vex that we've had since last time. Didn't get to work on her a whole lot since then. But that's okay. We're going to continue. We're going to continue adjusting things, such as maybe we want to make Trinket a little bit bigger. Like that. So I hope y'all are having a fantastic day. I'm having quite a lazy one. My sleep has been so incredibly off. Which I talked a little bit about it yesterday on the makeup stream for the Sketchathon. And my headspace has also been nothing but like Pokemon Legends Arceus. I wanna go and catch Pokemons and battle Pokemons and finish research. Otherwise, not much else going on. In terms of D&D, well, my Sunday game we just played our Witchlight campaign. We got 2 new characters because last time half our party got wiped. So we had 2 new characters join. Not a lot of wisdom or intelligence in the party anymore. Hey Don, yeah, you made it to the start of the stream. Just looked over and saw your message. It may get some house noise. I think the house furnace just turned off as I switched scenes, and I think someone came through the door, but that's okay. May get squeakiness. Since the room that's above the one I'm in currently is completely empty. It's being worked on. So there's like a stronger echo upstairs, and this house doesn't have much in terms of insulation between the floors. Like, insulation on the outer parts of the house for sure. You know, gotta keep the heat in somewhat, but there's... You don't hear anything. I'm gonna check my phone. Let me type a sad face. And I will check on my phone because I can look at my Twitch stuff. Get a double. Oh, when you just say, I don't hear, I think you're not hearing my stream. Gotta specify at the start, man. Okay, we're good. Which means my, I have G-Hub because I have Yeti, so it means it's canceling out that noise at least, so that's good. No worries, no worries. You got it. I need to do is probably drop in... Oh yeah, I guess since last time I flattened Vex and made a new file. I always make new files whenever I flatten things, just in case I completely screw it up and have to go back to the previous version. Oh, I didn't realize that foreground element was on the arrow element. Oh hey! My Streamlabs bot is working! I gotta work a will lurk. Alright, no problem, Dawn. Glad you can have a tab open. Whoops. I was on the wrong layer for that. There we go. Just for me. Yes, indeed. I'm liking kind of that color mix here. Unfortunately, it's not dark enough for a foreground element, but I'm kind of liking it. Really different music for me today, but that's okay. So let's get some shading. So I know what lighting wise, the most direct light is going to be coming from the right. So kind of upper right here. I'm gonna have a lot of down shadow. I've also got to consider all the bounce and diffuse light. In a wooded area. So probably gonna have a lot of blues and kind of subtle greens through Trinket's armor for the shininess. I'm gonna go back to the hairbrush actually. I was liking what that was doing. This music's making me feel like I'm doing some sort of what does that remind me of? Kind of like Sonic Adventures 2 during Shadows levels. Actually really liked that Sonic game. That was probably my favorite one. I think with the Chow Garden and stuff. I mean, now to try and play it, it's a mess, but at the time I really liked it and I thought it worked. And I had the companion games. I was really, really good with in the Chow Gardens. Didn't have to slog as hard. But yeah, I was saying my D&D Adventure Sunday. So we got 2 new characters to replace the ones that died, and the party is extra low in wisdom and intelligence now. It wasn't too bad before. Only 2 characters were that, which was my character Ambrose and another character who was our bard. He ended up, the player himself ended up stepping back. He wanted to break from D&D for a bit. And the other 2 characters, one was a sorcerer that had pretty decent stats, and a fighter with pretty decent stats. So now we got a paladin who has basically, I think it's either 7 Might be 7. I know it's a -2. So it's the same as Ambrose's wisdom, but in intelligence, and they also have a low-ish. No, their wisdom isn't that low. But, and then the other character is basically a commoner stats, like their average across the board is close to, like it's either mix of 9, 10, 11, 12, maybe 113. So I was present when they rolled, so it's kind of hilarious. And it was already a challenge for me as a player, playing a character that doesn't have much intelligence and is not insightful in the least. And me as a player still kind of seeps into it a bit. So it's a struggle, but we'll see how that campaign goes. We're supposed to learn the lesson of stop messing with shit or it will kill you. But now we just added another character that is fine with messing with shit. Like, Ambrose has no wisdom to really be insightful on. Like, he wants to do the things, but he has just enough intelligence that if it doesn't seem right, he won't do it, but now we got a real button pusher. We'll see, we just got conscripted into doing things for a hag so we can get some of our shit back for the party. And tonight I am doing more D&D on the stream show, which is on Zeal Daddy. I have my schedule for it on mine, but I stream it. I don't stream it from mine. We had a very emotional moment for my character last week. I believe the VOD is up on YouTube currently. So if you missed out, it's there along with all the other seasons, but if you want to go for the stuff I'm in, everybody's fantastic. I do actually really like my character for concept for Elixia, that campaign tonight. I think Circle of the Stars Druid with Level and Fathomless Warlock is an interesting combination. And great for a world that has a lot of water in it. Which I guess a lot of worlds do, it just depends on where you are, but this one, it's a lot of island nations, like little islands and stuff. So. Mechanically, the Fathomless Warlock has water breathing and a swimming speed, and the swimming speed is actually faster than my walking speed. So if we're on boats and we go overboard, I'm dandy. You know what? Just realized we're also dealing with a hags on Alexia, so I got 2 campaigns where we have to deal with hags. Oh, Clip's doing painting or saving. Haven't ran into one in the Waterdeep campaign. At least not that I've played. We might be at a level where we could take him down pretty easy. I don't know. I think there's only one other hag I could think of at our current level in the Waterdeep Mad Mage campaign. Flip. When it wants to. There we go. Alright, let's create a layer, multiply it, put it down to 20-ish. Success. Because of our bounce light situation that I'm imagining, we're going to be in this kind of blue-green area here. Actually, just gonna... No, I'm not. Just gonna pop it on, but is her head still on a separate layer? Yeah, it is. Okay. Well, I'm liking her head, so I am going to flatten it. It's still preserved in the first file, so we're good that way. All right. Let's get this going here. So, we got... This will also help with separating a bit with a trinket as well. So I'm just gonna block it in. Not worried about pure position with it right now. So we're just going... how I want it to work. It's really intense electric music. I have to really work on the metallic on her graves here. I'm gonna go in. I'm gonna go with blending here. I'm gonna do layers of shadows, so I got to get my soft shadows in, and then we work to the more hard ones where they have the hard line. I think I'm gonna make her braid a little denser. That's the wrong layer. Especially with the now animated show, her it really gave her a thick braid. So we're gonna do that. And you can't see it with trinket in the back there. A little tiny, so I'm just gonna run a couple lines to help me on this. Nothing permanent, but just helpful. Maybe just reaffirm the braid pattern here. It's getting kind of muddied. I'm supposed to do a twist around, okay. So let's shift things here. Yeah, this scale part of her outfit needs to be worked on. Okay. Already starting to feel a little bit better. Will be progress as I get my layers of shadow. It's all build up. Alright, trinket again. Let's do mouth bit. Pretty sure. Let me pull up a bear reference here. Bear mouth. There we go. Yeah, so I gave him a pink base, but bears have a lot of kind of more darker skin, like brown, black flesh around. So let's pop in those colors then. So definitely these lips here. More closely at some of these. Kind of blackish with some like pinky purple. Once upon a time way back when, sadly, I found the best bear refs came from hunter websites. Yeah. Yeah. I guess it would be pretty difficult. Like, I know nature photographers can do a pretty good job. That may not always be what you're looking for when you're looking for references or trying to do like an in-depth study. And it's only really hunters that would do taxidermy, so kind of a struggle there. They had the clearest depictors of anatomy. Yeah. I'm just kind of referencing at least photos of living bears with their mouths open. Plenty of those pictures at least out here, but yeah, to do any in-depth anatomy research, it ends up being sad when you realize it's those kind of hunter sites that have everything that you're looking for. Finessing with this. Be a bit to make it look right. No bear has the same mouth. Such 80s vibes from this music. Hey, my Stream Elements bot is actually working. Well, that makes me happy. We'll see if one of the other messages pops up because it's doing the tip message. So I guess for me to get my bot working, because the way this is set up is there's Stream Elements, which is this bot, and it's integrated with OBS. So I have two shortcuts on my desktop. One is OBS, one is Stream Elements. If I do just OBS, I think it doesn't, the bot doesn't work, but if I open OBS through Stream Elements, it does. So I'll have to just take off take off the OBS desktop shortcut and just look at. Also loving the 80s sound on, yeah. I'm feeling it. I'm feeling it today. It's pretty good. Makes me think of all like a lot of the movies and stuff and shows that had this sort of elements. Well, I guess the harder kind of rock electronica beats are kind of more in line with movies. You don't really hear that in shows, but definitely, well, not so loud. There's probably some live action shows. I've only watched the cartoons of the 80s. Get a layer of light on Miss, not Miss, Lady Vexelia here. Whoa, that's intense. Okay, hold on. We're gonna do overlay. It's always a struggle to decide which one I want to do. Overlay, is it screen? I think we'll do overlay for the direct lighting. Blocking the elements where that sun will hit. Just little bits. Oh, not that far up the braid. A little further down. Alright, take a second to just move because I've been sitting. Always take a moment to stretch. Stretch your hands. Very important if you work at a desk job. Especially important for us that do a lot of drawing. Make sure you stretch out your fingers, your tendons. I do want to make at some point, I had this in my mind forever, and Dawn, since you're here and listening, you'll have to hold me to it. I always want to make this media clip that would go off either every 30 minutes or every hour whenever I'm doing an art stream or something. One would be a clip to be like hydrate, just a little pop-up, almost like an alert, but more of a just a media that pops up. And then another one for stretching, like take time to do like an animated where it's like going through like the different motions of how to stretch and stuff. I think it would be cute and different and important to have. And, you know, utilize that animation skills that I've learned. Since I mentioned hydration, I'm going to take some water. It's a good idea, yeah. I had it in my mind for like a while, then I'll forget about it, and I'm like, oh, I should, once in a while, especially while I'm streaming, I'll think of it if I pause to stretch. I'm like, I should really make the little media alert, because I can create the video and have it set where the animation will start going off at like a certain time frame. And yeah, because the way the OBS stuff works is you can set your videos and audios and stuff on loops. So if I have a 30-minute loop and in the last 5 minutes it goes like stretch your arms and stuff. I mean, more visually descriptive than that, with a cute little character. Ah, I gotta make a little ghost character for it. Yeah, it'd be really cute. And it would just be loops of animation for even the stretches, so it'd only be a couple frames of like, hey, stretch that arm, stretch the other arm. Potential! All of it is there. Ghost stretch. Well, yeah, I got all the ghost stretching. Okay, yesterday, this reminds me of something I saw on Twitter yesterday. Someone posted this random list of things for 2022 that gets you into demonic possessions. And the top of the list was yoga. And somebody made a comment wondering why yoga was on that list. And we're like, oh, well, I guess I'll go do my yoga and get possessed. And the person that made the post, or the original post, replied, yeah, go do the devil stretches. It's like, devil stretching, yeah. Yeah, it was weird. Like, I'm trying to think of everything. It came up because it had D&D on the list, which D&D has been on the stupid, you know, it had the satanic panic behind it, you know, that kind of history. So, okay, expected to see it there. But it had like yoga, it had anything that was like Eastern religion based. It had, what was the name of it? It had a lot of randomos. Like there was one that I never heard of, when I looked it up, I was like, oh, that's kind of cool. It was like Rosicrucianism. I can't say the word because I've never heard it before, but it was basically about for those that are of I guess either Christian or Muslim or Jewish, who have those kind of faiths and kind of bring in more occultisms and kind of spirituality outlooks and stuff into it. Yeah, I'll have to find it and share it. Some of the stuff was funny. Some of it you're used to hearing if you're part of the scenes. Like goth was on there, heavy metal, but like some of the others was like, really like yoga, really. It's almost like anything that keeps you balanced. Like it had meditation on there. I was like, all right, okay, meditation. It's just a type of prayer, really. What stupid things people. If I had the eye roll emote, yeah. Maybe once I hit affiliate, I can get emotes. So I'll try and make some for my Twitch, since I am an emote maker nowadays. So I'll try and make some custom ones that are used for my Twitch only. But that could be on the list. This week I get to do a brass dragon for emotes. There's a story. They are where praying and meditation do the same thing. Who knows? I think fundamentally it may be there, but there's always the need to be super special. Thanks, Stream Elements, for reminding viewers you can make tips on my Ko-Fi. That's ko-fi.com/ghostcandle. But I think fundamentally the understanding that they both do the same thing is there. But for people that are so against what meditation does or is because it's not their religion, like from their religion, or their religion did not invent it. These was, oh, maybe meditation's centered on yourself and that's bad. Prayer must be given to God. Every thought and breath must be given to God. That sounds exhausting. I think I'd rather meditation. Extremists. Don't ever be an extremist. Let's get some happy trees. Let's enter our Bob Ross stage, because I'm feeling this plain background with some lines isn't gonna be in our favor for very long here. So let's get some Bob Ross in going. Let's get some happy trees. Gonna need a very big eye roll. Make it as big as Twitch allows for emotes. I'm liking the beat in this song. Anyway, Don, you're supposed to be lurking and working. Hey, there's the Twitter one. Follow me on Twitter at GhostCandle. Thank you, Stream Elements. I'm glad to know all my things are going off, so maybe I'll wait for a little bit. The tip one's working. Now the Twitter one's working. I did have one for merch. I may have turned it off. You are working. Okay. As long as you are getting work done. I really should be looking at tree reference, because I always think I know how to draw a tree or paint a tree, and then I look at a tree and then I'm like, what the fudge did I do? Yeah, I don't even know what my lines are doing here. I'm just kind of trying to paint over them. You know what? No, I gotta be more confident. Trees do weird shit. I've seen weird root stuff. We're fine. I'll look up a tree later. Maybe make a rock in there. I don't know, I'm just kind of slapping things down now. Slap, slap. Did I mention Bob Ross? I've honestly haven't. I think I've only seen like one full painted segment of his work, like in terms of watching his show. Should really give it a watch just to see. And if anything, just having it running in the background, pretty chill. Some colder tones up in the top here. Slap in the colors. Slap it in. Slap, 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 slap. I don't know, but it's there. Let's just build up our layers. I'm actually gonna pull out a bit. Just so while I'm slapping all this stuff down, I can kind of see where the path is going. Use the liquefy brush to push stuff around. I'm so happy that they got it in this program. Going across the other way to break it up and do something intriguing, because all the lines have been going kind of in the same direction. I'm gonna slap in a tree. Just kind of frame them in here. That's how we do. Okay, starting to feel a bit better about it now that we got some elements here. Let me hydrate. Hydrate is important. Drink your water. Helps keep you moisturized. And oh man, because of how cold it is, the air in the house has been very dry. So I'll put on moisturizer after I wash my face and stuff. And usually, like, because I have I am a combination skin, but more on the oily side. So usually, even with a bit of moisturizer with oil. Oh, phone, hang on. Let me mute myself for a second here. Okay, the phone has been answered. Anyway, like, I'm used to not having to be too heavy with my moisturizers or anything. But because of how dry it has been, I put on moisturizer, walk out of my room, and I feel my face. I'm like, did I put on moisturizer? It doesn't feel like I did. I had to go back and put it on. Put more on. So with my lips too, like usually I only put on like a bit of lip balm after a shower to help keep the moisture in. And my lips have been so dry and flaky because of the way the air is. Slap in the arrow. It's hard to really notice it. I didn't mention everything on my setup here. For what looking at the stream screen, you can see my goal for my art support was done. It's basically the cost of my top tier commission, so that is good. I was good for January, so that does have to be updated for February. Now that is the 1st. Stream Elements did mention my Ko-Fi. I also got to make a bot announcement for Throne. If you decide maybe you don't want to tip me money, but you want to get me an item, maybe. Throne is my wish list of many kinds of trinkets and fun things, from stuff I could really use to make my setup better in terms of lighting and things, or stuff that just brings me joy. You can also see more in my about down below on Twitch. All right. Continuing the tree landscaping. So as we go further back, color's gonna gray out more and kind of match our diffuse here. I think I'm gonna have to do a bit of research once again on forests. I've done plenty of forest scenes. I think my last Critical Role series, like half of them were in woods. Yeah, I'll have to do a bit more research on how I want this scene for Vex to look. We are gonna create a speckling light, I think, for sure. Maybe like a kind of slight god rays in the front here to really get a bit of a sparkle on her. Warm. So we get more of a halo kind of side light here. That way she can be a little more separated from Trinket and have some depth. Separate the different parts on her. I'll be making notes to myself probably when the stream is done. That's one thing good to do, is that when you're thinking of walking away but you have ideas on what to work on next, just create a new layer, make little notes on like finding like an area funny, or you want to adjust something. It's good to do. Okay, that's the mix of my multiply and overlay. That's making me notice her nose weirdly. Okay, let's try flip. Okay. Still a lot of mess, still a lot to work with, but I'm not hating it. That's the important thing. Not hating it. This music. Alright. Well, this may be it for today's stream. Almost an hour is up. I have some other things I want to work on. Got commission stuff to send out. Just to share some sketches and process. It's a different one for me. I have to research quite a bit, so I want to show the commissioners so that they can give me any feedback for direction. Might be one that will take quite a bit of work than what I usually do. And sometimes that happens. You're not always going to hit the right point on a commission right off the bat. Sometimes it might take a couple tries out, especially if it's a character that hasn't been drawn yet before, which this one hasn't. It's a brand new. I'm the first one to draw it, essentially. So I'll have to send that away, get some feedback for direction. Also gotta get some final setups for tomorrow's Unbound Lands. There's a couple of menus I want to make sure I have in there for the story we're going to be telling tomorrow. Do have my I'm playing on Zeal Daddy tonight. That's Zealzaddy. And Alexia, a D&D campaign. So make sure you check that out if you can. I will be hosting it from this official stream channel, but it's there. And then we'll be probably working on this piece more Thursday afternoon. That's about it. I think that's my week of streaming. So thanks for popping by. Glad you can make it. Glad we got quite a bit done, honestly, since the beginning. We got some layout stuff working here. We got a little bit of light and shadow. Trinket's a little more filled out now. Gonna be some more work definitely on the armor because it's feeling pretty flat. Just because you slap on highlights and shadows doesn't mean it feels right. So yeah, thanks for stopping by. Thanks for jamming with this crazy, I don't know, electronica, vaporwave, synthwave, whatever mix this is. It's been dope. And I'll talk to you next time. Ciao.